So friends, Kash Patel has definitively proved himself to be unfit, dangerously unfit to lead the FBI. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, right now, there are two legal stories in the news that dovetail perfectly, proving, beyond all dispute, I would go so far as to say beyond a reasonable doubt, that Kash Patel is dangerously unfit to lead the FBI. One story involves Patel's damaging and dramatic mistakes in the investigation into the Charlie Kirk shooting, and the other, Patel's unlawful firing of some of the FBI's best, longest-serving, most accomplished FBI special agents and supervisory special agents, for which Patel is being sued. But let's start with Patel's horrific bungling of the Charlie Kirk case. Here's the new reporting from Reuters. Headline: FBI Director Kash Patel faces scrutiny for inaccurately saying Kirk killer had been caught. And that article begins, Kash Patel faced his biggest test yet as FBI Director as current and former officials criticized his inaccurate statement that a suspect had been caught in the fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, a prominent ally of President Donald Trump. Moments before officials on the scene of the shooting in Orem, Utah, briefed the press on Wednesday, Patel announced on social media that the person responsible for the shooting was in custody. That claim was quickly contradicted by local officials, leading to hours of confusion before the FBI clarified that two people had been questioned and then released following the incident. Current and former U.S. officials called Patel's announcement counterproductive. Quote, at the outset of an investigation, much of the initial intelligence is typically wrong or slightly off. That's why what Patel, did yesterday has never been done by any FBI director before him or any division leadership before, said retired FBI agent Dan Brunner. The investigators need to sort through all the initial intelligence before putting out factual evidence. The FBI does not run investigations on social media. A White House source granted anonymity to discuss internal discussions called Patel's announcement unprofessional and said, quote, his performance is really not acceptable to the White House or the American people and will be addressed. Patel's first big test. It amounts to the first big test for the FBI director, and he failed. My editorial edition. It amounts to the first big test for the FBI director, a Trump loyalist who has pushed to transform the most prominent U.S. law enforcement agency into an instrument of Trump's America First agenda. I would even say morphing it into a revenge operation. The article continues. Under Patel's leadership, FBI agents, who typically pursue complex investigations ranging from corruption to national security, have been drafted to investigate political rivals of the president and pursue street crimes in Washington, D.C. Patel has pushed out dozens of FBI employees at the traditionally independent agency who were seen as insufficiently loyal to Trump. 3 former FBI officials, alleged in a lawsuit filed on Wednesday, hours before the shooting, that Patel told them he had been ordered to fire anyone who worked on a criminal investigation against Trump after his first White House term. Among those dismissed, the former top official in the FBI's Salt Lake City field office, which is now taking the lead on the investigation into Kirk's death. And friends, in a minute, I'm going to talk about how potentially damaging it is for the director of the FBI to tweet or post out that we have the shooter in custody, we have a suspect, when he's dead wrong about that. I'm going to talk about how that evidence will make an appearance in the criminal trial of the actual shooter and may even help him get away with his crime, courtesy of Kash Patel horrifically bungling the early stages of the investigation. But let's go right to the second legal story, and it involves the lawsuit brought by 3 FBI agents, special agents, and supervisory agents who were wrongfully and unlawfully fired by Kash Patel. The case is captioned, Brian Driscoll Jr., Stephen Jensen, and Spencer Evans, plaintiffs, versus Kash Patel, the FBI, Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, the Executive Office of the President, and the United States of America, defendants. Introduction. For decades, plaintiffs Brian Driscoll, Stephen Jensen, and Spencer Evans served this country with distinction and courage as special agents and senior officials of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Over the course of their remarkable careers, they prevented terrorist attacks, rescued American hostages, saved children from predators, and disabled violent street gangs. Each day of their service was dedicated to protecting the American people and to fulfilling the oath they took when they joined the FBI to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Plaintiffs' commitment to these higher principles compelled them at all times to perform their duties free from political bias or influence. This same commitment galled defendants, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, the Office of the Presidency, and others, galled defendants who initiated a campaign of retribution against plaintiffs for what defendants deemed to be a failure to demonstrate sufficient political loyalty. On August 8, 2025, FBI Director Kash Patel terminated plaintiffs' combined 60 years of distinguished service in federal law enforcement with cursory, single-page letters sent to each plaintiff. He did so in violation of federal law and the United States Constitution. Patel not only acted unlawfully, but deliberately chose to prioritize politicizing the FBI over protecting the American people. His decision to do so degraded the country's national security by firing 3 of the FBI's most experienced operational leaders, each of them experts in preventing terrorism and reducing violent crime. Patel openly acknowledged the unlawfulness of his actions. On or about August 5, 2025, in a conversation with Driscoll, Patel plainly stated the reasoning behind his firing of FBI employees that Mr. Driscoll sought to defend. Patel admitted that his superiors, who he referred to as they, and who Driscoll understood to include defendant, Department of Justice, and the White House, had directed him to fire anyone who they identified as having worked on a criminal investigation against President Donald Trump. Patel explained that he had to fire the people his superiors told him to fire because his ability to keep his own job depended on the removal of the agents who worked on cases involving the president. Patel explained that there was nothing he or Driscoll could do to stop these or any other firings because the FBI tried to put the president in jail and he hasn't forgotten it. Driscoll indicated his belief that Patel's reference to his superiors meant DOJ and the White House, and Patel did not deny it. When Driscoll explained that firing employees based on case assignments would be in direct violation of internal FBI process meant to adjudicate adverse actions and prevent retaliation based on case assignments, Patel said that he understood that and he knew the nature of the summary firings were likely illegal and that he could be sued and later deposed. Driscoll, Jensen, and Evans were the target of defendants' retribution for their refusal to politicize the FBI, and they seek to vindicate their constitutional and legal rights. This vindication will also serve to illuminate and protect the rights of all remaining active FBI employees to be free from coercive political demands by defendants. Plaintiffs request that this court review and grant relief on the grounds that defendants' actions violated their Fifth Amendment rights to due process and their First Amendment rights to free association and speech, were taken without any constitutional authority, and are a legal nullity. So, friends, I just want to make one point about each of these two stories, each of these legal developments. First, the lawsuit brought against Patel for unlawfully firing FBI agents and officials, people he was there to support as their supervisor. The complaint sets out that Patel said the following: he understood and knew that the firings were likely illegal, but he had to do it to keep his own job. You know, friends, I had the honor, the privilege to supervise, lead men and women in the Army. I had the honor and privilege to supervise, lead men and women at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia when I was chief of homicide and had about 30 homicide prosecutors working under me. And if I know anything about leadership and supervision, it's probably what I learned in the Army. You know, there are 3 rules when it comes to supervising. Support your people, and support your people. Kash Patel told the people he was unlawfully firing he knew it was likely unlawful, but he had to do it to keep his own job. That is the opposite of leadership. It is the opposite of supporting those you supervise. And it proves that Kash Patel is dangerously unfit to serve. Okay, friends, let's jump back to the first story involving Kash Patel tweeting or posting on social media, "We've got the guy in custody," right? "We've got the perp, case closed." I'm taking liberties with the exact language of his post, but he posted, communicated to the American people, "Suspect in custody." But now, Kash Patel wants us to know that he was dead wrong about that because they released that guy, and now they have another guy. He's the guy that we have in custody. This is the right one. This is the guy who really did it. So friends, let me just take a few minutes now to explain what a third-party perpetrator defense is in a criminal trial. This new guy that they have in custody, after Patel assured the American people that the first guy was the suspect in custody, the guy who did it, this second guy, if there's enough evidence to indict him and take him to trial, you know who he's going to call as one of his star defense witnesses at his criminal trial? Director of the FBI, Kash Patel. Let's hope by then, it is former director of the FBI, Kash Patel, because he is dangerously unfit to lead. But this second guy's lawyer will cross-examine Patel along the following lines. Now, former director Patel, you posted on social media publicly for all to see that you've got the suspect in custody, correct? And that wasn't my client. That was absolutely not the man who you see sitting at counsel table in this courtroom today, was it? It was a different guy that you told the American people, suspect in custody. And now, former Director Patel, you would never have posted something like that, announcing it to the American people and the world if you didn't have rock solid, conclusive, definitive evidence that that person that you said you had in custody, that first suspect, was in fact the guy. Because it would be reckless, it would be irresponsible, it would be in violation of your duties as director of the FBI if you posted that with no evidence to support it, wouldn't it be? So friends, an argument like that, and trust me, that kind of questioning would go on for hours, highlighting, just how damaging that third-party perpetrator information and evidence might be to securing a conviction of the right guy, the second guy, that, of course, Kash Patel wants everybody to believe, no, really, he's the right guy, even though I told y'all somebody else was the right guy. I don't know if that would create in the minds of one or more of the jurors reasonable doubt, but it might. And it's only because Kash Patel recklessly opened his mouth or, posted with his little fingers that suspect in custody, and it turned out, he wants us now to believe, he was dead wrong. That's reckless. That's irresponsible. And friends, let's hope that by the time there is a trial of the person who is suspected of committing this horrific crime, shooting Charlie Kirk, killing him, let's hope that by then he is being referred to as the former director of the FBI. Because, the safety and security of the American people, like justice, matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.